After riding out the political storm to hold on to their Eastleigh seat in February's by-election, the Liberal Democrat leadership could have been forgiven for thinking there might be easier times ahead. But over the past month, they've suffered a flurry of resignations over measures introduced in the coalition government's Justice and Security Bill, providing for evidence to be heard in secret in cases where the government says national security is at risk. The government wants judges to hear such evidence in what they call closed material proceedings, or CMPs. But some of the critics say that contravenes important judicial principles.
There are two fundamental principles of a fair trial. The first is equality of arms. That means each party knows the case the other puts, knows the evidence they're relying on, is able to challenge it, call evidence in rebuttal and make submissions on the evidence that the judge hears. And the second is that justice is heard that court cases are heard in public, that justice is done and is seen to be done. And this bill in one fell swoop ends both of those things.
It was called the Security and Justice Bill, but it's all about security and nothing about justice. My opposition is simply this: I believe in justice and fair trials. If you have a procedure where evidence is withheld and hidden, it cannot be fair.
The proposals have been introduced because the government says it's often forced to abandon civil cases and pay out millions of pounds in compensation to terror suspects who claim they've been mistreated, and that they can't defend these claims because that means revealing secret intelligence sources in open court, putting their procedures, sources and lives at risk. But opponents of the bill say that simply isn't happening.
The government has been unable to point to a single case where national security has been threatened or jeopardised by a disclosure order made by a judge. There simply hasn't been one.
I think the public would resile from the idea of terrorists being paid millions of pounds, but that would be a gross misrepresentation of what this legislation is about.
The procedure of public interest immunity, which has existed in this country for decades, provides a very sophisticated set of mechanisms by which national security sensitive information is dealt with appropriately by the courts. For example, use of anonymity orders or screens within court and so on. There are very sophisticated procedures which have been developed by the courts over decades, which are used all the time.
And this is all about, let's be honest, the government trying to hide their own embarrassment for complicity in the sort of abuses for which people are trying to seek justice.
The proposals have certainly brought together some unlikely alliances in opposition. MPs from all parties, the UK's senior judge, Amnesty International and even the Daily Mail have spoken out against the measures, and the government agreed to some safeguards, including to allow judges rather than ministers to decide when secret evidence is heard. But for some this wasn't enough, and the most significant fallout has been felt within the ranks of the Liberal Democrats.
I think it's partly because as a party we have always prided ourselves on making policy at member level. And of course different MPs will have different opinions, but this was something which was mandated by the Liberal Democrat membership.
But the membership was ignored, and after just 7 out of their 57 MPs opposed the government in the Commons vote last month, Joe Shaw, a Lib Dem candidate at the 2010 election, resigned from the party at the spring conference.
The preamble to the party's constitution, which is a very geeky document, but Liberal Democrats care about it a lot, say that the party exists to build and safeguard a fair, free and open society. And I really believed in it. That spoke to me. That was the sort of society that I wanted to build. That was a party I wanted to play a part in. And I did not feel able to campaign for and stand up for the things I felt strongly about within a party whose leadership was so intent on passing this legislation.
And after attempts to water down the bill in the House of Lords failed last week, Islington Lib Dem Councillor Greg Foxsmith followed suit.
For the leadership to ram through this legislation as part of the coalition and ignore its own members' wishes makes my membership worthless.
I met Nick Clegg. I didn't get any sense of huge enthusiasm for the bill from him. My impression was he felt it was something that he had to do, and he didn't have the necessary leadership, sadly, to stand up for his values or his supposed values and say, no, I'm not going to do it, which is what he should have done and what a true Liberal leader would have done.
And with the new bill set to be passed into law in the next month, it could be that Nick Clegg still hasn't heard the last of this issue from within his own party.